one thing that we've seen is that, really to understand Bitcoin, you have to have this long-term perspective. As you've already said, right? It's about holding on for a long time, maybe that retirement account, whatever. But when you can put your money into something that's retaining or growing in value. You mentioned that how these athletes, they have this money and they feel like it's losing value and they have to do something with it. But when you're able to put it into something that's retaining and even growing in value, it starts to change your thought process all of a sudden. Totally. And now you're like, shoot, do I really want to buy that thing? Like I have the money right there. Like, it's probably going to be worth more in the future. When you have fiat money and it's worth less in the future, it's like, well, shoot, I better go spend it. And an extreme example of that would be Weimar Republic in Germany when they're having mass inflation, or in Venezuela, for example. In Venezuela, they might actually get paid multiple times a day and have to go out and buy stuff right away because it's losing value so fast. So anyway, it seems like most people have had their whole perspective shifted. Have you noticed that in yourself or other people?
Oh my God. And I think that's like one of the biggest thing that Bitcoin did to me is you start to realize, wait a sec, what is money? What is this thing? And you realize the value of it and you go, okay, so if this is gaining in money, then do I really want to spend it on this Gucci shirt or whatever it is? You're like, wait a second, what was I doing? And, when I was single, whatever, like I didn't get that still. And I was like, oh, okay, that's a nice shirt. I'm going to buy that. You dummy, you just spent a ton of money on it. Yeah. But hey, the certain things like that. But when you start realizing that your money is going up or your money has the potential to go up, you think way harder, not only about money and what it does, how it really is this crucial trade that you're making. Yeah. You really start to think more wisely about your money, and you go, geez, do I want to buy this nice car or do I want to buy a home for me and my family? So value, you're trading value for other value, and you have to see it that way, right?
Yeah. And I'm just curious if it's changed your thinking more. I mean, maybe this is a chicken or the egg syndrome. Maybe you were already the guy who was thinking about your future, which is why you got into it. Maybe sometimes it's the other way around. But like, once that spills into your thinking on money, all of a sudden it's like, well, now I should think about my health in the future. Maybe I should think about my relationships in the future. Right. And all of a sudden we go from this fiat money mindset where it's all now, I'm going to have pizza and ice cream every night because I don't care if it tastes good, to all of a sudden this long-term perspective where I'm like, shoot, I should think about my health, like all these other things, like maybe it starts spilling over into our life.
There's no question about it, man. I think you couldn't be more accurate on that. I think when you start to do the investigation of what money is and you compare it to other things and you compare it to, the hardest asset in the world, like a Bitcoin, you realize that it starts to like embed itself into your life and spread into all these different things, if you're doing the research and if you're thinking about it. And I think that is, it's huge. I've learned more from investing in Bitcoin than a lot of other things because, of course, money makes the world go round. Everything we do, every decision we make, the time that we take to do things, it really involves money, and I think that's especially true if you are trying to look to the future and trying to provide for your family.
Yeah. Now, switching gears a little bit, leading into that, I mean, one thing about Bitcoin that's so unique and so revolutionary is that for the first time in history, I can hold my wealth on my own. I can have custody of it and I can decide nobody can steal it or manipulate it. And if I want to send it to you, nobody can stop it, block it, prevent it. And that's revolutionary. So it allows me to be sovereign, right? No government can tell me what to do with my wealth and my money. You being a media personality and a podcast and a new YouTube channel, I'm sure you're seeing the amount of censorship that's coming out like crazy all over us, right? And maybe you're not that edgy. You don't have to worry about it too much. I have to watch what I say for sure because I'm pushing that line. But, I hear a lot of people talking about, well, the government's getting so intrusive and so totalitarian against us that they're just going to ban Bitcoin. But I think that like if they want to ban it, they're almost furthering the need and use case for it. Like, what do you think about that? How do you see that battle playing out?
I think without a question, I think that censorship is a real thing. And, we live in the country that, or, in the United States, we live in a country that is all about freedom. And we're seeing less and less of that with all the types of censorship. Once I realized that Bitcoin was basically a separation of state and money, it was so mind-blowing to me that that's a system that we just accepted for so long,
Right.
and, I've talked to my brother about it, and, I had my arguments with him on it. And he said, well, it's not backed by the government and they can't support it. If you lose it, I go, that's the whole point. That's the beauty of it, is that it's not, and it's incorruptible. It's unfuckwittable. If you want to say it, you can't mess with that money. And that's a beautiful thing. And so it scares certain people, but I think that we have to be very careful of giving power to the government, any government, because the more, what Cicero says, more government intervention, the more laws, the less freedom. And that's what happens is, once they embed into your life, it's very difficult to get them out. And this is what Bitcoin is doing on with the network, with cryptography, with math. And as far as banning it, I don't think that's going to happen because, whether it's the miners or the people themselves who own it, they can go to another country, they can travel to somewhere else and use it. And, there's some arguments that say, listen, the network was built with a code, and computer code is essentially freedom of speech. So is the United States going to go in there and ban this freedom of speech, this code? The same thing people were talking about with the internet, that they were going to shut down the internet back when it was still, coming up in the 90s and things. And, I think they found that was not possible to do it the way that they want. So I think there will be some of that. Certainly there already is, some regulation around Bitcoin, but it's going to be more difficult than they think. And I also think it's going to be one of those things where ultimately they're going to realize the whole game theory, around it and say, well, we got to opt in here at this point. We're losing the game. So I don't know. That's what I think. But
I think to your point, they did try to ban cryptography and make it illegal to own cryptography, the code, and export it. They said it was, munitions or military intelligence. And then that was defeated because, as you said, right, the freedom of speech. They printed it out and they delivered it. And it's like, hey, it's a bunch of zeros and ones, right?
Right.
But shoot, man, I wouldn't have said this 6 months ago, but right now, I mean, they're trying to ban free speech. So who knows what's going to happen with that? But further to that point, we have seen this massive level of entrenchment into the system now, where we have people in office, senators, congresspeople, who are Bitcoin supporters. I've seen a massive amount of Wall Street getting into it. And of course, if you kind of understand how the government works, it's really run by lobbyists.
Right.
And the financial industry is who's lobbying the government. So we're really recruiting a lot of people on the side of Bitcoin. I also like to say that, and this might be a little bit hardcore, but I mean, in a year from now, we might have 1 billion people using Bitcoin. And if 1 billion people don't want Bitcoin to be illegal, then it shouldn't be illegal, right?
Yes, absolutely, man. I think, and you made a great point. I mean, you have Senator Cynthia Lummis, who's a big Bitcoiner, and, other people that are in Congress that are aware of the technology. Gensler, who is going to be the head of the SEC, has experience and knowledge about Bitcoin and blockchain technology. So I think these are all good signs. I do think that, anytime you're trying to change something as drastic as the monetary system, there's going to be a lot of fires that you need to put out, and there's going to be a lot of battleground and everywhere. But I think we're in a good spot. It's scary sometimes, but I think we'll get out of this, and I think it's going to be a technology that will be accepted eventually. I don't see how it can't.